Yo, what's going on, boys? Quinn69 here. I just got done watching the Blizzard Diablo 4 live stream, and they just got done talking about the Season 2 and all the changes that are coming. And you know what? I went in with very low expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised. This is going to be the largest patch I think they've ever done in the history of Diablo 4. And I say that, I mean, obviously this doesn't really mean much because the other patches have been pretty minor. But this one here is pretty substantial, and I think it's certainly heading in the right direction. I'm just going to go basically talk about everything they talked about in the live stream, except I'm going to do it way faster. And I'm going to give you the TLDR, and then also maybe a couple takes, a couple really good takes. So, they started off by basically telling us about the season, which it's called Season of Blood. You become a vampire. Items drop by doing the season mechanic, which have these special stats on them called Divinity, Ferocity, Eternity. It doesn't really matter. The way it works is you get these pieces of gear. They have these stats on them, and then these stats will allow you to equip these special vampire powers. There's going to be 22 powers. I did look at all of them. There is a post which details every single thing about them. I would say most of them are kind of eh. Some of them are pretty interesting. But one thing that I really like is the mentality shift. They are making these powers with combinatorics in mind. And what I mean by that is they are class agnostic. So they are not specific to, classes or skills, and you can combine them in many, many different ways, which should allow players to actually have more build diversity. Let's be honest, there probably will be a few of them that are just giga OP and everyone's going to use those ones anyway. But, these are the kind of things that they need to be doing, especially when it comes to itemization, to make the game better in the long run. So I like that they're starting to, realize, hey, do you know what? If we just make it so you can use them in many different ways, it creates more, builds for players to experiment and play around with the in-game with. So I like that. The actual mechanic itself kind of just seemed like Helltide 2. And then they also have some rogue exile guys, so basically like Nephilim, but NPCs that try and kill you, who are also vampires. There's like little events and things where you kill guys. You can get like lures to summon dudes, I think, and then you get their blood, and then the blood allows you to unlock and upgrade powers. There's also going to be some sort of reputation grind in the game where you can also get powers and upgrades and things. Hopefully, they're not going to lock the reputation stuff behind time gates. We'll have to see. Overall, though, the mechanic seems like it's not like it's going to change your life or anything. But, it seems pretty all right. Definitely a way of augmenting your gameplay. In-game content. So they're doing 5. How did they put it? 5 new returning bosses. I don't know what that means. Kind of a whatever. Okay, you got Gorilla Gore. So this is basically a big lightning guy. You got Varshan. It's the malignant tunnel guy. He's kind of come back. There's a guy called the Beast of Ice. He's just a big ice guy. You've got the Dark Master Zer, which is like a vampire boss, and then you got Duriel, the big maggot guy from Diablo 2 or whatever. Now, most of these bosses aren't like uber bosses in terms of difficulty equal to Uber Lilith. The only one that comes close to Uber Lilith, they said, is Duriel. And there's a reason why. Okay, because these bosses are all going to have unique loot tables. Okay. And not only that, Duriel specifically is going to drop Uber uniques, aka like the Shaco, the really, really busted ones that basically nobody has. And they said the drop rates will be such that everyone who plays the game will pretty much know someone who has the uniques. AKA, I think pretty much every time, like maybe 1 in every 20 kills, 1 in every 50 kills, maybe 1 in every 100 kills, you will get an Uber unique. So if you wanted to farm one out, you could. The rest of the Uber bosses also drop specific stuff, but they do not drop Uber uniques. And a lot of them aren't really Uber. They're just like harder bosses, and they're more designed as like a progression path, which, to be honest, I think is needed right now because, in D4, you pretty much you just play the game, do a few Nightmare Dungeons, and then you basically just get your gear, and then you just fight Uber Lilith. You just kill Uber Lilith, and then it's over. There's nothing. Whereas now, you're going to have like some bosses in the middle, bosses, coming up to the end, and then you're going to have the two really, really hard bosses. Now, the bosses are locked behind materials which you have to farm, which forces you to effectively do other end games. So, for example, they're going to make you do Helltides. They're going to make you do Legions. They're going to make you do the Whispers if you want to unlock these bosses. So, say like the ice guy drops the item that you want. Well, then, okay, you're going to need to farm whatever the materials are to spawn that guy. Which, you know what? I'm okay with that, as long as it's not too grindy, and as long as, because it means you just have an increased variance instead of just only doing Nightmare Dungeons. Well, guess what? Now you can go do some bounties. Maybe it's like, oh, the boss I want to farm is the one that drops from Helltides. For example, the lightning guy requires you to farm Helltides. And Helltides also got buffs, which we'll go into in a bit. They made some pretty massive changes to dungeons and Nightmare Dungeons. So now when you teleport to a Nightmare Dungeon, you actually teleport inside the dungeon. So you don't teleport outside it. It saves you an entire load screen. Which, whatever, that's pretty cool. This is a massive change. They pretty much just deleted every single objective that isn't just kill the boss. So now when you're in a Nightmare Dungeon, the only thing you have to do to complete it and get your key is just kill the boss. And there will be events on the side if you want to do them. But you don't, it's optional. They also changed the layouts where they're basically further limiting backtracking. And the example they gave us basically showed, they wanted to make it so you can still go like left or right in some places. So it's not purely linear, but it'll pretty much make it impossible for you to go the wrong way, because they'll just straight up block off the door. That would be the wrong way. And you have to progress this one area first before you can go to the next area. So, I mean, yeah, it looks all right. The dungeon events, all the events have more density. So they're hopefully making it so it's viable to actually do the dungeon events instead of just skipping them. We'll have to see about that. The NPCs inside all the events don't get one-shotted anymore. They're changing all the telegraphing on the traps, so they're more telegraphed. That really wasn't a problem for me. Maybe I'm just a god gamer, I guess. This is a massive one here. Crowd control across the board in the entire game has just been nerfed. So there's just less CC. So the duration of all crowd control in the entire game, like the guys who stay with the swords, the slows, everything has been reduced. And this is going to, A, because people are complaining about CC being too powerful, and B, they're trying to increase density overall. So then, obviously there's more monsters, there's more crowd control, so they need to nerf it. They also changed a bunch of Nightmare Dungeon afflictions. The backstabbing mods that would just one-shot you? They, instead of one-shotting you, they apply like vulnerability to you now. There's this one mod which basically gave monsters giga resistance to critical strikes. They've changed it so they have to hit you and get debuffs on you that stack. So now you can kind of like outplay it if you can kill them fast enough so it doesn't affect you. The death explosions don't stack with monsters that already explode. And on top of that, they don't like stack many times on top of each other. So they basically massively nerfed Death Pulse. The Lightning Storm affix, wherever that, basically you've got a time to run to a dome and then lightning one-shots you, the one that killed my character with a bug. That only happens in combat now. And then on top of that, whenever you stand inside the orb and the lightning goes off, you get a big movement speed increase to basically offset the, the downside of standing inside the protections. The one called Drifting Shade, like that big rock that follows you around and then pulses on you, the duration of it's like massively nerfed, and the time it takes between each time it chases you around is also increased. They did a large change to XP. So, XP bonuses are now multiplicative. So that means potions, instead of being like, whatever it was, World Tier 4 gave you a huge amount of XP boost. Instead of just adding on and basically being useless, it now multiplies. So all sources of increased experience will now multiply with the World Tier XP increase, which means it's really important. So you do not want to not have your potion up when you're in the higher World Tiers, especially. You want to have as many XP buffs as possible. Overall, they said that the XP bonus, with all the XP buffs and everything they're basically putting into the game, they're going to make the game 40% faster than the current season, which is already fast, mind you, to level 100, which is, kind of crazy. They said they want to, quote unquote, everyone to hit level 100 and complete the journey. This to me kind of like I don't know. To me, it's like, oh, they're just making basically this. This is kind of what Diablo 3 did. So where they just kind of trivialize leveling. And I don't know. I'm kind of like, I get it. Like, oh, no, who's going to complain about getting more experience? But we'll have to see how this pans out. It may be like everyone hits 100 in the first day, which would just be, kind of ridiculous. They also buffed experience you get from the Paragon board glyphs. So as you're doing, dungeons, they just level up faster. And also they changed the way the monster scale a little bit, where whenever you're doing World Tier 3, once you basically go beyond 55, the monsters will scale up with you. And once you go below World Tier 4, when you go above 75, the monsters will scale up with you. And it's to basically smooth out the experience gains. I don't know. Yeah. They're redoing gems. So instead of having gems drop as items now, they now drop as a crafting material, so it doesn't take up any space in your bags. Obviously, that's really, really nice. But then at the same time, it kind of, removes the weight from the gem. So you'll just basically kill monsters, you'll get a crafting material, and then when you want to put a gem inside your gear, you simply go to the vendor and you just craft the gem and then you put it in your gear. Fair enough, I guess. People who skip the campaign, who haven't done it or unlocked all the waypoints, now have automatically unlocked waypoints, which is kind of nice, I guess. This is a kind of a big one. All Renown rewards persist across all characters. So, literally everything. Paragons, Obols, all that shit. If you have it one time, you have it forever now. Now, that is not with the experience and gold, though. So, the little XP boost you get in the gold, that does not transfer. And then apparently, they just randomly added in, this does not apply to hardcore characters. And then they say it's called hardcore for a reason. I call bullshit on this. I think Blizzard there's some technical limitation with hardcore characters, and they can't fix it. So then they're just like, fuck it. Hardcore players, it's like 2% of the player base. Whatever. They can just do it again. They're totally redoing town layouts. So they're basically putting there's an occultist next to the Tree of Whispers. There's stashes. Basically, in some of the cities, there's literally multiple stashes. And there's more waypoints everywhere. The Bloodshot vendors have been moved. Pretty much they're just making every single NPC in town and stash inside all the areas a lot closer together and a lot easier to access. So you don't have to spend as much time like running down to Africa to get to the Bloodshot guy to then, gamble to run back. Horse fixes. This is kind of massive. So horses, they just said, this is from Joe Shelley. They don't get stuck, okay, as much. Okay, we'll see about that. I'll be the judge of that when I play the game. Mounts run faster when they're not sprinting. So, for example, when you're in a town, they run 14% faster. The sprint duration is increased by 50%. So you just, again, go faster. They fixed the thing where your mouse basically controls the speed of the horse. Well, fixed. What they did is they changed it so you need to move your mouse far less to get the maximum speed on the horse. But if you have your mouse right next to your horse still will walk slowly. So, if you know, you know. Horses now break through barricades. So they kind of just made barricades redundant. Fair enough. People didn't like barricades. They made the change. Pretty much all the mount cooldowns have been changed. So when you manually hop off the mount, it's now only a 5-second cooldown. When you get forced off the mount by a monster or something, it's only a 15-second cooldown instead of a 30-second cooldown. The combat skill has a 3-second cooldown now instead of a 10-second cooldown. So basically just everything, mounts go faster, less buggy, and you can use all your shit more often. Legion events, because they're going to be dropping materials, I guess they basically buff them. So you have like a 10-minute telegraph as to when they're going to spawn, and they spawn pretty much twice as much. Same thing with world bosses. They're going to double so you're going to have a 60-minute warning on a world boss to spawn, and they're going to spawn every 3.5 hours instead of every 6 hours. And on top of that, there'll be a world boss message saying, hey, world boss is about to happen right now. So it'll be far harder to miss a world boss, and you're going to be able to get, a lot more world bosses if you want. They are buffing the absolute crap out of Tree of Whispers. They're going to make it so nightmare sigils that drop are always within 5 levels of the highest sigil that you've completed. So then whenever you do a Tree of Whispers bounty cache, you're going to hopefully get a relevant key. The gold rewards from Tree of Whispers has been quote unquote giga. Boy, they didn't say giga, but whatever. Basically, they're implying that if you want to farm gold, Tree of Whispers is going to be that place. So it is the best place to farm gold. You want to get gold, you got to do bounties. It is what it is. They buffed the cache to always basically, so whatever your character is, it then pluses 10 levels of item power to the gear that's going to drop. And if you get the legendary version of that cache, it'll go plus 20. So then that means basically the gear that drops from the True Whispers is hopefully going to be relevant. So again, just massive buffs. Helltide's got loads of buffs. XPs from Helltide just generically increased. The caches that say it's going to say, oh, this drops a sword or something. It actually drops a sword, so it drops what they advertise. On top of that, it's going to show on the world map. Helltide caches items do the same thing that Tree Whisper does, where basically it gets your level and then it pluses 20 to the item power. So the gear that drops is generally speaking going to be relevant. They did a absolute metric shit ton of quality of life. So they're basically finally getting that hardcore disconnect scroll functioning. So whenever you DC and you have a scroll of escape in your bag, it'll use the scroll, and then your character, if you're in combat, will get teleported to town, and you'll basically stay alive. Which, I don't know, we'll see if that actually works as they describe. They talked about doing that literally at BlizzCon in 2000 and whenever the fuck they announced the game. They're giving us 2 additional character slots. Yippee. Where is the stash space, Blizzard? If anyone from Blizzard is watching, where you're gonna give us 2 character slots, but no stash space? Whatever. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to give you guys the TLDR. My bad. Items can now be marked as favorite instead of junk. So that means you could just mark the stuff you want in your bag to keep in there, and the rest of the stuff, you press a button, bang, it all goes away. So it's like an inverted version of what they have currently. You can still do the old system if you want to mark things as junk as well. That also works. As extracted aspects now get sorted with auto sort, and what that means is when you press the auto sort button, it just sorts them so like the same aspects are next to each other and stuff. They did mention that they want to have a new aspect rework where the aspects, I mean, they didn't say this specifically, but they were basically implying they don't want the aspects to be actual itemized things in your bag, but more something that interacts with the Codex of Power in a way where you would kind of get an aspect from a thing, you put it into your Codex of Power, and it would just be gone. They're talking about doing a full rework, but we're not getting that right now. That's going to come later. They changed it so affixes on items are more consistent. So what that means is when you're comparing 2 items with similar affixes, the strength is always going to be where the strength is, and it's going to obey certain rules. So it makes it easier to look at items. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but I feel like this is really important. I mean, because looking at D4 items currently is kind of a mess. They buffed the tooltips of dungeons on the map. So basically, you can see what dungeon it is, and then you can also see if it's got Tree of Whispers on that dungeon. It's some problem that people on Reddit were complaining about. They fixed it. They added search to stash. Okay, you got to give W to Blizzard there. Okay, that they added in a basic feature that is in games that are literally made in the 90s, but they have added a search. Okay, W. They're adding in a mode called streamer mode, which basically hides personal information, battle tags, all sorts of shit. No one of you guys probably don't really care, but that's kind of cool being a streamer. They basically added in an option where combat ticks can be disabled, and what that means is, when you go into a pack of monsters and you get spammed with vulnerable, fortified, dodge. Okay. You don't get spammed with that text, so you can actually see the monsters. This was a massive problem for me anyway. Depending on the build you're playing, it could be more annoying or less annoying. So yeah, I'm really happy that they finally got that in. They're adding in auto run, so you can basically put your character in auto run and then open up the guild interface or open up like various panels and as your character runs towards a direction, which is a little bit World of Warcrafty, but I'd rather have it than not have it. The minimap has been zoomed out more, so it mainly is to help you navigate dungeons and not go the wrong way, and see more information on your minimap. They changed the way enchantments work, so now it's going to cost a little bit more to like re-roll stats on gear, but instead of it like doing that thing where it ramps really fast and gets out of control and the item basically bricks because it's like, oh, this costs 40 million per re-roll now. You basically brick the item. It's now going to ramp way slower. So a little bit more upfront cost, but far less of a bricking of your item, which I think is a good change. They also mentioned that re-rolling gear is going to be a lot easier with the Tree of Whispers change, just because of the sheer amount of gold you will be able to farm from Tree of Whispers, implying that the gold you're going to get from Tree of Whispers is like going to be completely bussin'. This is a really huge change, actually. Crafting materials basically drop in place of... Okay, let me explain this. So, say you're in World Tier 4, and you drop some shitty, non-ancestral item. Instead of dropping an item that you just don't want and don't care about, it just drops as materials automatically. Now, legendaries obviously would stay dropping, but like anything that's not legendary doesn't. It just gets immediately salvaged and put into your materials. And what this means is, whenever you're fighting World Tier 4, you're just gonna every single yellow that you loot, every single rare that you loot, will be ancestral. If it's not ancestral, you will just get crafting materials. So your inventory is going to be far less cluttered, and every time you look at an item, there is a reasonable chance it could be an upgrade, instead of having to look at a bunch of trash items that you just don't even want, and it just auto-salvages. And the way I see it is like, yeah, they didn't put a loot filter into the game, but this is kind of a pseudo loot filter. So, fuck it. I'll allow it. They buffed incense. So those like random ass buffs you can get, which you can share with your friends or something. It now doesn't disappear on death, and there's a little bit of a buff there. They changed the way item level works. So basically, as you kill higher level monsters, the min and the max item power ranges go up. And what this means is you're constantly going to obsolete your gear, because you'll be finding level 50 monsters, and then you get to like level 55, you're finding level 55 monsters, and that means the gear is just dropping better and better and better and better. So it means you're going to consistently... Your gear that you find at level 50 will be trash compared to gear that you find at level 90. The gear you find at level 90 will not be best in slot. You'll have to be killing monsters like level 100 and above. Now, beyond level 100, the way I understand it is, instead of the max level going up, only the min goes up. So what that means is, as you fight monsters that are really, really high level, aka level 100 to 150, the items will eventually drop at the maximum eye level possible, so at 920, which is the maximum eye level a ancestral item can be. I don't know how I feel about this. So they're basically just making it so all items that you find below level 100 are pretty much obsolete. But it means you have a reason to farm more gear, so I really don't know how I feel about this, but I guess we'll see. They did some Q&A, where basically they talked about how they have big plans for itemization with time. So that's really, really, really good, though, because they're saying itemization is a problem. And then Joe Shelley said, we really want to fix itemization and in-game, which literally is what is, in my opinion, the two biggest problems with D4, hands down. In-game content and itemization. So they are clearly aware that their itemization is complete dog shit trash, and the end game is basically non-existent, and that they're adding stuff in to fix that. So that's promising. They mentioned Duriel is basically an easier version of Echo of Lilith. They said as long as you stack poison resist, it's going to be an easy fight. They talked about potentially adding item sets into D4 in the future, which is just stupid because they've already put item sets into the game as it currently stands. Like, if you have an item that just makes Whirlwind do like double damage, and then Whirlwind suck enemies towards you, and then Whirlwind, you're already putting an item set in the game. It's just not called an item set. I think that's terrible itemization, and I hope they don't do it. I think sets and set bonuses are trash, and they are like anti-player decision. They are literally forcing you into a build that they make, which they're already doing. So I think it would just be like literally a step backwards. So I hope they don't do that. Joe Shelley said he likes the idea of loot filters, and he thinks they're good, and he's looking into exploring potentially like filtering out loot. Someone asked if they're going to add more stash base in. They said they're not adding more stash base in, but they are continuing to improve. Continuing to improve the ability to like store items and shit. Like, what the fuck? Just add stash space, please. They said there's gonna be another campfire chat coming on the 10th of the 10th, which I will also be covering, live, and then I'll try and do a TLDR like this if people like this. And they said they're gonna also release the patch notes, which are going to be 41 pages. I mean, are they going to be using really big text, or is it going to be crazy? I don't know, man. I mean, there's a lot of changes coming. They said they're going to be talking about, basically they're doing a rework of unique itemization. They're doing a rework of crit, vulnerability, and overpower. They're going to be putting in loads of unique items for the unique bosses. So I guess that's going to be next stream. Overall, though, yeah, that's pretty much every single thing they talked about. Hopefully this wasn't too long and I got across my points. Yeah, let me tell you, I was expecting Season 2 to be complete trash. And I was even considering, like, man, I might play it for like 2 days and quit. Whereas this looks like, oh man, you're going to want to log in and at least kill the 5 new bosses. Which, that's going to take, I mean, my guess is it's going to take, a person who's just playing the game ethically, at least a week, perhaps. So, we've gone from like Season 2 looking like some trash, like 2-day play, log out, D4 bad, to like, hey, D4 has actually got enough content to play for 7 days now of Season 2, which, that is a lot better than what I was expecting. So, hopefully, I got everything across there, boys. And, yeah, if you like this type of video, let me know, and I'll do one for the next live stream. Oh, yeah. Also, Diablo 4 is going to Steam. Yeah, we'll see how that pans out for the reviews. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see how the Steam boys like Diablo 4. Until next time, peace the fuck out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later, team.
Because he is
God Gamer. God Gamer. God Gamer.